Good afternoon, everyone. It's Will Wilson here from ARK Agriculture, the silage storage specialists. You've probably come across us. We are the pioneers of the sloping walled silage clamp, the oxygen barrier silage film, OxySeal, and more recently the secure covers silage clamp netting. You would have seen these around the country, very well known, and I hope you are using them. If not, we'd be delighted to tell you some. Today's a bit of an update really on the maize harvest conditions across the country. I'm based in Norfolk. We haven't had rain for at least 4 months. I'm looking out the window now, grey sky, threatening, but I don't think we're going to get there. This has left some very, very dry patches and some very stressed crops. Across the country, doesn't look quite as bad, to be honest. The Midlands, the Southwest and Wales seem to have got the rain that they needed when they needed, but it's not quite as good as perhaps. It's not going to be the golden year we'd all hope for, which is a real shame because we had the sunlight as well. One of the questions that we get asked a lot about at the moment is basically what's the best solution for harvest and storage of maize silage under the current conditions. I'm no expert on growing maize. I know a bit about storing it, so I've done a bit of research on your behalf. The general consensus seems to be that as soon as your maize, especially under these extreme conditions, starts to brown and wilt and the leaves start to fold up, you're probably getting towards the end of the period where any significant rainfall will change the dynamics of what you've already got. So you may want to consider moving ahead fairly quickly and booking in contractors ready to remove what you've got. There's going to be a challenge to get the yield that you're expecting, but it's unlikely that yield, even with the best intentions and a decent rain, is going to come up much in the next couple of weeks or even a couple of months. So where we were normally looking at a September, mid-September, late September harvest date in the southeast, that could easily be coming quite forward quite fast. For the rest of the country, obviously it's location dependent. You may be on track to basically hit the numbers you're expecting, in which case it's just a question of managing and monitoring what you've got. The Seed Growers LG, they do a really, really useful guide, as well as the Maize Growers Association, and that will explain to you how to manage and monitor the maturity of your crop. The one thing I do know is you can't judge it by the bit you see on the side of the road. It's just as well, because if we did that in Norfolk at the moment, it would all be on suicide watch because it looks very bad. But that isn't a reflection of what you're finding in the middle of the field. So definitely worth monitoring your crop. If you're in the southeast on very light lands, then you may want to be bringing your harvest dates forward, or certainly thinking about it. And if you're in the rest of the country, I don't think a huge amount is changing. In fact, we could end up with a very good yield. It just all depends on how you've managed with your climate in that area. From a silage storage point of view, there are a few interesting things that come up with drought stressed crops. The first one is you might not get the volume that you're expecting. With a lot of silage storage in the southeast, under a lot of pressure in the past anyway, perhaps we haven't built as many clamps as we ought to have done. This could perhaps the silver lining could be that you're able to manage your storage a bit better. There's unfortunately the cloud that accompanies the silver lining is the volume of material you're going to be able to clamp this year and digest or feed to your cattle is going to be lower. And alongside that, potentially dry matter losses. And I'm just it's just a question of managing that side of things, I think, and identifying alternatives. So if you can't get hold of the maize that you need this year, you might find that you have to start looking at different crops, changing old patterns for next year. So maybe looking into alternative brewers grains, and again, an area that I'm not an expert in. But what I can sort of really help and advise with, I hope, and we as ARK Agriculture will do, is basically the storage of your maize. So what you've got is going to be worth a hell of a lot more this year than it was last year. You've also got to account for the cost of growing it, which has gone through the roof: diesel, labour, machinery. So estimates are around £50 to £60 a tonne, a fresh weight of maize silage. That could be significantly more for some people. Last year we're perhaps talking about 35 to 40. 2023, that could be very interesting to see how much people are valuing silage at. So what your silage is, you know, at least 20 to 30 to 40, maybe even 50% more valuable to you than it was this time last year. So you must look after it well. And when we talk about looking after silage, it starts at the clamps, it goes through to the covers and the feed outs, and it's fairly simple. So what we'll do over the next couple of weeks is sort of run down a few of the best top tips that we picked up from our years of storing thousands of tons of silage across the UK. And we'll run through them and basically explain how we think, you know, what advice we would give you to try and improve your yield, not your yield, sorry, to try and improve your silage storage so that you don't get the waste, so that you do walk away with as much as you can financially from your investment